I want to call the order of the Finance Committee meeting for March the 2nd, 2020. Before we get into our agenda items, we will have a presentation at this time of our Employee of the Month by Mayor Borster.
Could you all join me down front? It is my pleasure. Is it working?
Tap on it and see.
It is my pleasure to present the March Employee of the Month, Darren Morrell. So if you'll just come up here, we'll talk about you for a minute. And before I start, I would like to tell you that recently at my place of business, our water was frozen. And we didn't know what was the matter, and we were going to call the plumber. But I was advised that this gentleman might be able to help me. So he came and dug around the meter and got the water to trickling. So I think he does a good job. Over and above all this we're going to say about him. Darren began working for the city on October 19, 1997 as a meter reader in the Revenue Division. After the new smart meters were installed in 2007, he was promoted to utility field technician in December. Darren enjoys the other technicians he works with because they are fun to be around. That's probably because he's fun to be around too. This is Darren's second time receiving the award of Employee of the Month, previously being awarded in March of 2016. In his free time, Darren enjoys being outdoors and fishing, and he also enjoys spending time with his wife and his daughter. Darren was nominated for demonstrating proficiency in assigned tasks, promoting a pleasant working environment, showing dependability, and having a positive work attitude. We congratulate you for all those things, and would you like to say a word or two?
No.
Oh. Okay, well then, I'll just give you this pretty thing. You have one already. Oh, and we're going to have our picture taken. Oh.
I'm gonna do a couple, okay?
We'll be in Hollywood the first time. Well, congratulations.
That's not working.
I have given that to him.
Returning to the Finance Committee meeting, agenda item number 1, please.
Consider approval of Finance Committee minutes of February the 3rd, 2020.
After reviewing of the minutes, are there any corrections or additions to our minutes?
Move for approval.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to approve our minutes. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 1 passes. Item number 2.
Consider approval of claims for all city departments January the 24th, 2020 through February 21, 2020.
Do we have a report from the Purchasing Committee?
Purchasing Committee did meet this afternoon, and I would recommend approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve our claims list. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 2 passes. Item number 3.
Discuss and consider approval of Ordinance 4091A, amending the Muskogee Campaign Finance Report Article, Chapter 37, Elections, Article 1, Campaign Finances, to the City of Muskogee Code of Ordinances by repealing and replacing the following sections: 37-2, Filing Requirement, 37-3, Definitions, 37-4, Duties of City Clerk, 37-5, Delinquent or Late Reports, adding Section 37-6, Appeal of Assessment, 37-7, Hearing over Assessment, 37-8, Contribution and Expenditure Requirements, 37-9, Failure to File Reports and Failure to Disclose Information, 3710, Identification of Funding and Authorizing Sources, Providing for Codification, Repeal or Severability, and setting an effective date, or take other necessary action.
Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. Roy, if you could help me out wherever I'm wrong on this. 'Cause
Absolutely.
You know more of the history on this. Actually, this goes back about 10 years ago. Our former mayor, John Tyler Hammonds, moved this forward. So because we do not have to report to the county on, we do not have to comply with state law as far as campaign finances. And I think for a long time, we've been skirting around our filings. So John Tyler Hammonds put together, and I don't know all the history in regard to this, but he put together a really good policy that makes it pretty simple to file and make it very clear on campaign contributions. And it's pretty easy to do. Anything over $200 does need a name attached to it and where that campaign contribution comes from. So it was a pretty clear policy that was put together. And I think he tried to get it passed 2 or 3 times, and it failed. And this time, I looked at it. We recently had an election, and it came, I think, around more so than ever before in our community. Candidates that were running for office talked about we needed transparency in our community. And one thing that I think our community is very good about is transparency. If you look on our community channel, you can see everything we do. You just turn on the TV. I think Muskogee Phoenix does a great job of reporting what goes on. We have a PublicWorks and a finance committee. Nothing's held behind closed doors. We have so you see everything before it comes to city council. So I think we do a lot of things that are very transparent. One thing that is not transparent is we don't not comply with state law when it comes to campaign finances. So what John Tyler Hammond's done is, because it could not be mandated because of the policy, it was put into place to be that it was voluntary. What this does is, I'm not doing anything new. What I'm doing is just saying, let's go back to what they proposed at that time. Instead of making it voluntary, we make it mandatory, like it should be. I had asked our city attorney to pull up what was proposed at that time, and I asked him to also look at what state law required, that we would fall under the state guidelines. The state guidelines are extremely stringent. So I think the lesser is better for us. I think we do a good job in our community, and I think the less stringent is fine for our community. And I think they've done a fine job at that time. So that would be my recommendation. So I make a motion.
Any discussion? Do we have a second to the motion? Once again, do we have a second to the motion? Mr. Attorney?
If there has been no second after you've called for it, then the motion would have failed for lack of a second.
Okay.
And there could be another motion or whatever else action the council wants, and it's up to the chairman then, if no other motions are made, to move on to the next item.
All right, once again, no more motions or counter motion? If not, we'll This agenda item number 3 fails for lack of second. Moving on to agenda item number 4.
Receive report from Main Street Muskogee regarding their economic development activity on behalf of the City of Muskogee and take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have an agreement with Main Street Muskogee. They provide economic development activity on behalf of the city in the downtown area. And Dylan Luck, the board chair, is here. He's got a 10-minute presentation he wants to give, and he'll have opportunity for you to ask questions again as part of that as well. So I'd like to turn the floor over to him for him to make that presentation.
Thank you very much. And I misunderstood you. I thought it was an hour and 10 minutes. To get started, most of you probably have had a chance to review the presentation from Main Street. Basically, right now where we're at, we are without a executive director, and part of Main Street requires an executive director to be basically being a complete Main Street program. So we're in between. We had John Newby as our past, and so we're in the process of looking at a new director at this point. Part of that is just looking at the past and where we're at right now. We're really trying to put a little bit more emphasis on what that director is going to do. And so I'm going to go into a quick presentation here. I'll be as quick as I can with it. A couple of things that we've been working on, basically the blight study. So that was something that we had finished up this last year, which ended up being around 700 pages. And it was looking at multiple pictures, downtown buildings, streets, alleys, anything and everything within this area downtown that we could consider as a blighted area. And the intention for this would hopefully open the door to the possibility of creating a tax increment finance district to help further provide some funding for downtown. Created a new business guide. One of the challenges that we've ran into many times is going into a new community or trying to open a business or just being a new business owner is, what do you do? What are the steps? A lot of that stuff is not really transparent. We run into business owners that may not have the proper licensing, may not know what the proper steps are. Who do you talk to? What those resources are? So we put a guide together and we posted that. It's something that's on, I believe we're trying to get it on the city side if it's not already. And it's also part of the Main Street site. So what this is more so just a step-by-step. Please encourage you to go to the site and look at that. We have a newsletter as well that goes along with this from Main Street that you can receive updates on this and kind of keep in tune with what we have going on. But the intention here is for a business owner to be able to take step-by-step whatever that may look like for what they will need to do as far as permits, zoning, whatever they need to do. So that new business guide is, the cover is shown here on this page. Some of the events that we've been working with, we show, of course, the Main Street Downtown newsletter. We also have First Saturday Gathering that we started last year. Pup Crawl, that's part of the First Saturday Gathering. The Bonanza, Small Shop Small Saturday, the Bass Reeves premiere, and of course the Christmas Parade. And I'll get into a little bit more detail on some of these. Bonanza, I'm sure most of you are familiar with what that is. It generally draws a pretty good crowd. We estimated around 3,500 participated this last year. There were around 45 booths set up, and the intention is just to draw families out to do something downtown, get them out of the house. We don't really have anything else that as far as the downtown for Halloween, so this is something that seems to draw a pretty good crowd, and it's been ongoing. I think you had a big hand in that at one point, Alex. So the Shop Small Saturday, that was something that I actually have some data on, and that's something that we've been pursuing. We started a program this last year called the Passport, and the Passport basically just took it was a incentive for people to shop with the downtown merchants. And it was a tracking device for us because we wanted to see who was participating in it. We wanted to get that demographic. And in your guide, I believe here, if you can even read this, it's where it's highlighted. There were about 450 printed, 54 that were turned in. That for surveys, that's about average for what we've seen. Mostly women. The men aren't participants on this for some reason. The establishments that were visited are what we had that are highlighted. And really all that wanted to show is they are all in a cluster area. So when people come to downtown and they shop with different merchants, they don't stray too far away from that particular area. If they can park their car and walk down a strip and visit what they need to, they don't hit these other areas. And that's one of the problems, or that's one of the concerns we want to identify and try and address. And I'm trying to move through these as fast as possible. A little bit of social media data, Facebook. We have, just on our shares, there was quite a bit of activity on our Facebook when we launched the first Saturday. I'm sorry, the Small Saturday. Some of the reviews just from downtown merchants and from some customers we included in here that we thought were pretty appropriate and just kind of spoke highly of how they appreciated the passport and what was going on downtown. The Bass Reeves, that was a world premiere. We really wanted to get in there and try to support that. That's pretty incredible for Muskogee to have. And so we catered and basically helped out with that event, decorated for that, for the film crew and Christmas parade. A couple things that have changed this last year. We modified the route. One of the things that we've run into is the route just didn't seem to be long enough. It's kind of who you ask, but for the most part, if they put everything together and they want to come out and participate in a Christmas parade, they don't want it to be over in just a short period of time. And it gives everybody a bigger chance to see it. It involves more of the downtown community so that you can get a more view of what is going on downtown. And included in this, we put a quiet zone, which is here for the first time. And that's more so to accommodate individuals with either an auditory sensitivity or they just don't like the sounds, the loud sounds. So it was pretty well received. This is more on the first Saturday gathering. This event it was the first year we held this, and more so it is not necessarily an event that we put on. Our intention was to more so provide a roadmap, a place, a contact for any nonprofit or any community gathering to have an event and basically capture the already busy downtown on Saturday morning surrounding the farmers market. So wanted to try and get more people involved with that, and so that's a work in progress. We more so just want to help navigate and present and market that for people downtown. Main Street, there is a discrepancy in our report here, but one of the things that we report on is just volunteer hours. And it's kind of a give back. What did we do for the community? What have we given? One thing they track is the average hour rate for a volunteer in Oklahoma. This is 2018 data that they're reporting on, but it's $22.95 an hour. So that basically means that anybody that's volunteering, the average rate of that comes out to that. So if you look at what our board and some of the committees that has participated downtown on multiple different areas, it ended up, I'm showing $13.97. It ended up being $18.97. The three look like an 8, so that's my fault. A little bit higher on the total give back instead of 32. I believe it's around 38 or 39,000. A lot of reporting with Main Street. What Main Street's working on now, there's several things. And I'll have to be honest with you, we've really kind of sat in a rut, it seems like, as far as we had some really high expectations of what downtown would look like 2 years, 3 years ago at this point. And while it's making progress, it's not where we expected or not what our hopes were, in other words. And we've identified some of the things that I think held us back, and there's some things that are out of our control. But one of the things that we've looked at is, hey, how can we be better stewards of city money or downtown merchants? If they're investing or if they're paying us as an organization, are we doing the best thing we can by paying a director to help run this, and that money's being spent into salaries? Or is there a way we can get around that? Can we put that money back into the community directly and just capture that and run it more as a volunteer organization? So the first thing that would happen is we'd lose our Main Street organization. But we looked at this, and we thought about this pretty hard. At the end of the day, we looked at what Main Street, the value of Main Street brings to the table, what programs are available, the resources, and then really more so the continuity and what a Main Street program and having a director would bring to downtown. And a lot of that is, volunteers can only do so much, and it takes a tremendous amount of volunteer work to do what we're doing already. You have to have somebody that's going to fulfill a full-time position, just doing everything else that has to happen and making sure that it's being done the right way every single time. It gives us the continuity and the consistency that we need to, in our opinion, to run a program or any type of a downtown organization to help stimulate downtown. Couple things, a little bit of a realignment. One of the things that we did identify is our organization was not necessarily holding true to what a Main Street organization would do. And the Main Street program itself is a nationally recognized program. It has guidelines and principles that it's nationally proven that if you follow these, you're going to see results. And some of those we were not necessarily right on. Some of them we were pretty close on. So this last meeting in February, we have, the board agreed, we have realigned ourselves with the principles, the 4 principles of a Main Street program, and I can get into that here shortly. With this, we are asking for a little bit of a change in the way that our funding has been presented in the past. This last year, 2017, 2018, we had received initially $80,000 from the city. 20 of that actually was a portion that would apply towards Ron Drake, and we would basically run him underneath of our organization because he had some projects that were still in the process. And so the rest of it, we would get a flat $30,000, and then we had a matching component for an additional $30,000. In the process of finding a director, all we're asking for is, can we possibly get this to a set $45,000? I think the salary range and the way that a Main Street works, salary range should be around $40,000, maybe a little bit less, and that's more of a total benefit package for an executive director. Ideally, a Main Street program is funded a third by the city, a third by membership, and a third by fundraisers. And so we have some work to do on our other sides, and so to come in and attract and bring in a director, we felt like we really need to be at least at that level at this point so that we can comfortably put that into our budget and accommodate for any changes and then work on the program going forward. We would like to, if possible, continue to receive the 15 above that as a matching component, but we can stipulate that that is not going to be any part of a operations. That will be something that we would give back to the community as part of the matching component. So some of the pain points downtown, some of the challenges that we all recognize, we're so divided, we have so much space, and we also have so many different districts, and some people just don't get along with others. And the biggest challenge for us, I think, that we've identified is communication. Each component, each district, some of them have their own meetings, they do their own things, and they may be really well at it, but they don't bring in everybody. We don't have a unified voice for downtown, and for us as a downtown organization or downtown in period, whether it's through us or not, we need to come together as a community. We need to come together unified and be a stronger downtown. We need to bring people to other districts when they come to visit whatever they're coming to visit to. We need to attract them and tell them they need to see the other ones. And there's a lot of thought process into this. One of the ways we can help with that is, as a member of Main Street, it's probably too small for most to see on here, but it's some of the membership benefits that are included with being Main Street, and a lot of it has to do with marketing, communication, and workshops, etc. Another is a unique downtown districts map, and I stole this from Bricktown, as you can see, but this is something that we're working on, that we want to be able to identify the downtown and have an overview map that has the different districts and the points that people can come see. I don't know how I'm doing on time. But for somebody to have a map and for this to be provided and updated or kept updated, would have to be done through an organization that's capable of doing that, of course, but something we'd like to take on and try to make it easier for customers and people to come downtown and find these resources. Still, some of the things that we don't want to overlook are where we're at, who we already have downtown. We're coming up with a historic downtown legacy business recognition, and we're going to identify 3 of the oldest downtown businesses, which this is going to be through, this is going to be Club Lunch, Muskogee Phoenix, and Hoops Hardware. And so we're going to be reaching out to those organizations soon to present this award. New amenities in downtown ideas. Some of the other components we're working on this year are we'd like to work more. One thing that we haven't been doing is working with Parks and Rec, just getting more stuff happening downtown, getting benches, planners, identifying a lot of the areas that the green spaces that we currently have and what can we do to enhance those. Pet etiquette, one of those things, we don't seem to have anything downtown for that. If you have a lot of the retirement buildings and a lot of green lots here, there's not anything really to promote or to encourage people to take care of their pets properly. And so I'd like to try to work out a way that we could set up the pet waste stations. Those things are about $200. We could get those. We just need to figure out a way to where we can put them and figure out a way that we can get the city to maintain them. One of the other things that we have recently invested in is basically it's a massive printer. It's for banners and it's also for the vinyl window films. So the idea here, as a downtown organization, we're going to be able to provide banners as a option for you to, if you're depending on what level donor or member you are, you're going to get banners that are set up at the downtown events, and that'll help market your business and market what you may have going on. That's not going to be an additional cost to those members. In addition to that, which may be hard to see, it's going to require some work between the city and between the multiple land and building owners that have vacant buildings downtown. The hope here is to develop a relationship so that we can start putting these window films in. If that becomes approved, it can certainly enhance what the face of a building looks like. These things, there's all kinds of them out there. You can create a theme. We have several examples of those for a downtown section or for however you want to do that, but it could be themed so that when you pass by or when you look at a building, it's not a vacant, nothing's in there building at all. Looks like there's something going on. Part of what we do also is we work with a lot of people that come in that may be looking to buy or have interest in potentially buying a location to open a business. And if you can change that dynamic of what your downtown looks like just by giving that perception that, hey, this could be here, it really can get us a lot further, changing the appearance. Downtown lighting, that's something else, maybe working with Parks and Rec. The lighting downtown is like to see if we can get those out earlier and maybe see if there's a way we can get more lighting in certain areas. I know it takes time and it's a work in progress, but the main idea behind that is just getting more people to come downtown. I mean, if the lights are here, that's something to come look at. And what happens with the merchants downtown is you end up at 5 o'clock in the wintertime, people roll up and they're gone and they go home because it's dark and there's no real reason to stick around. And something like that, something that can attract or keep people downtown, especially in that time of the year, get it out there early, make it a big deal. Couple things that, maybe it's a little overkill, but, if you could just identify a section and really go all out and work with the property owners and building owners to develop a really themed out Christmas lot or buildings, and then maybe propose getting a huge tree and have a tree lighting ceremony and put that in Hunt Space, because that's something that even so many communities have, and it's a way to get people downtown, and it's something to come see. It's not that big of a deal. Hunt's Green Space, I'll be quick on this. It's just another viable green space downtown. One of the things that, and this isn't anything new, this is something we've looked at in the past, but one of the things we were trying to find a green space that, with everything that's going on with the Depot District and then the Hunt's Green Space, is still a very viable place to have events downtown. There's a spot for both of them, and we're not stepping on anybody's toes. There are things that you can do at the Hunt Space that you won't be able to do at Depot District. So we're just trying to take some of these assets and make the best out of them. This proposal that was put together by Mike Martin, just basically, it's pretty simple, but if you could create a themed out Christmas scene in here with a tree in the winter, that'd be pretty cool. Hunt Space, basically the number we had to build that out, at least to get something that looks good, was about $200,000. So it wasn't like it was a huge reach. A lot of that, we had a lot of donation requests just for naming rights from various entities. Hey, we'll provide the bricks, we'll provide the concrete. Can we put our name on something in here if you get this done? So there's quite a bit of interest on that. At the end of the day, this is the end cap, so we have a lot of work to do. And as far as our organization, we really feel like we need an executive director just because there's just too much to do. And we need that full-time position. I'm sure I probably ran over on my time. Is there any questions that I can answer?
Y'all are doing a great job, and I know I participated in the first Saturday events over at the Civic Center back last year, having a vendor booth inside, and there was great crowds, great turnout, so I did a great job with promoting that.
Thank you.
Dylan, how long has Main Street Muskogee been in effect?
So the Main Street organization became effective, I believe it was January of 2018, and it was a takeover from Downtown Muskogee, Inc., basically just with a name change.
So this would be the third or fourth year you're looking for a budget?
Yes. So this will be going into our third year, I suppose. I may be wrong on my numbers, but I believe it was 18. So yes, and I understand it's city money and it's people money and it's people's money that work downtown and provide in tax dollars, and so that's a very good question that we've asked ourselves: is why are we doing this? Or is what we're doing going to get us where we need to be? Or are we wasting our time and wasting other people's money? And so it's been some deep discussions, and I got most of the board here tonight, so they came up here to support this because we were really on the fence as if this was the right decision to move forward. And the consensus was we can make this happen. There's a need here, and there's a community here that anytime that there's talk about downtown growth, what can we do to make our downtown better, they get excited about it. And it's hard to turn that away. If there's any input that somebody has and we can make this better, we're completely open to that. We're not, we don't know the answers, not all of the answers. We see mistakes and we try to fix them. And that's kind of how we're going forward.
Do you know if we've handed out any Main Street USA money? Have we actually got any grants out of the Main Street USA program?
At this point, I don't believe there have been any Main Street grants awarded.
So we're handing out city and foundation grants? It would be, is that?
So I guess the last set of grants that may have came out would have been for the facades, and then we helped administer those back. It wasn't this 2019, it was the prior year where we had worked on the facades. And so that was something we helped with, but as far as grants, there hasn't been any others. I don't know, did that answer your question?
Yes, my understanding is that the Main Street program was put together and a paid director was brought in for the purpose of, if you use Main Street, you have to have a paid director, and then you hand out Main Street USA funds and grants if you can get them. It appears to me that our planning and zoning area is actually doing the grants that are from the city and the foundation, and that's not necessarily going through Main Street Muskogee.
This last year, it has not. I know.
Yeah. Councilor Reynolds, the city's always administered the grants. Main Street's been our partner in trying to recruit people to use the grants and getting the word out. But the grants to the city, and the city is administering those grants. But Main Street's been a partner in recruiting businesses to participate.
And while we're on that subject, and just as well as you would know, we have had a lot of interest, a lot of questions on grants, what grants are available, and we don't have a good answer for that at this point. I know the city and the foundation have limitations on what they can do. You're right. One of the roles of the executive director that we're looking for is they need to be able to find outside money. They need to be able to fundraise, and they need to be able to build a relationship with the downtown merchants so that they don't feel bad about giving money. They see the value of it. And if we can't pull that off, then we're not doing our job. And that's where we're at.
That concerns me a little bit. I believe you're going into your fourth. Is this the fourth?
The city funded the previous organization as well, so during my entire tenure here, we've had a relationship funding a downtown organization.
It seems like we keep talking about this, and Main Street comes every year and they kind of recap what last year's plan was going to be without an actual report of the success or failure of that plan. And then they ask for more funds and put another plan in front of us. But we don't seem to ever evaluate the actual success or failure of the plan and whether that has merit to continue it. That is something that really concerns me. Since Main Street Muskogee has come into effect, it appears that there's been a lot of fragmentation and a lot of other organizations that have started up because they, in their area or whatever, feel like they're not being represented. A lot of what I hear you guys saying is we're going to take advantage of these districts and move people, this crowd that's downtown, we're going to move them from district to district. And from someone that's downtown all day, there is not a crowd downtown to move around from district to district. And I'm a little concerned that 4 years in, we're finally talking about a overlay of an interactive map. That seems like something that could have been done in the first few months. But I know all the counselors certainly want to see downtown be successful, and I know that that you gentlemen have, or ladies and gentlemen have worked hard to try to put together something that would help downtown. But I'm not so sure that we're not fragmented in our efforts through multiple organizations. It doesn't seem like one organization is able to pull together everyone and get people to the table. And I'm real concerned about that because our main problem downtown, in my personal opinion, as a business owner downtown, is we're not on anyone's radar as an actual district. So the majority of people that are going out to eat or go out and do things aren't really thinking about coming downtown. And we need a consolidated effort to bring everyone to the table in an advertising campaign and a marketing campaign. And here we are this far along in the program, and I don't see a unified marketing program. I don't see a unified effort, and that really concerns me. I'm all for Main Street Muskogee. I'm certainly for downtown, and I want to see downtown succeed. But I'm not so sure that we're being the best steward of our activities and our promotion of downtown. I'm extremely concerned about that, and I would really like to see some way that could be pulled together and something that has to do with a merchants association. We've replaced the Merchants Association with Main Street Muskogee, and I don't see anyone that's actually walking the streets and talking to the merchants, following up, going around talking to the merchants about upcoming events, seeing if closing the streets helps or hurts their businesses, and then more importantly, actually coming along after the events and assessing how did that work for you? Was that a positive thing for you? And once again, no unified advertising campaign, no commercials, no internet commercials. A lot of things can be done cheaply through guerrilla marketing, but for some reason they're not being done. And the overall effort to make downtown a destination point. If you're going to eat or go out in our area, you pretty much go home and you get the rest of your family and you go to either what we call Restaurant Row over by Chandler and York or over by Oltmogi and 69 Highway, but downtown doesn't really seem to be on people's radar. And I'm a little concerned that this far into Main Street Muskogee, we're asking for additional funds and we're talking about what we might do, but we don't really seem to have a plan to do that, nor do we have a proper evaluation over our efforts in the past that would give the counselors actual ability to evaluate it.
So, to answer that, multiple answers. First off, everything that you have said, and I can't even identify what wasn't, but most everything that I know you've said is accurate. There is a problem. To come up here and talk about why we need funding for another year or increase this or continue to support us is crazy. You know, when you look at, hey, how can you measure your success? There are things that we have accomplished. There are multiple things that we have in place. The end of the day, the biggest problem has there's been big ideas, and those big ideas took us off the path from what Main Street program actually is. And our intent as an organization is to get back on the path that Main Street puts out there for us. And that includes those things that you talked about. That is what a Main Street program actually does. The practice that we've had was more so following an idea that would grow downtown bigger, but it completely took us off the wrong path, and it took us to where we're at now, which is a dead end. And not in a way that we can't recover, but when you look at the progress that we've put forward, the energy that's been put into this, the dollars that have been spent, and then that's why I'm here today talking about this, is because we need to make some changes. We really do. And part of that is what we've talked about, and any input that we have, I truly value your input. I know you have out of all the people I've talked to, you've brought more ideas to the table within a lunch meeting than a lot of people have over a long period of time, and they make sense. There's things that we just need to improve on. If there's a better answer to this program, we're all ears. We're taking what we've learned, and we're taking what we know we can do and what the program can help us do, and we're going to apply it unless we're told otherwise. And along the way, any help that we can get, we're absolutely open for that.
Chairman, Bell, be recognized.
Yes, sir.
We definitely appreciate you, the board, and you, and all you do for downtown Muskogee. But I have some concerns also, just like Councilman Reynolds here. You pulled up the second picture up there where it shows where Hoops Hardware is and that area. Mm-hmm. But when you're going back down south, you got all these empty stores on Main Street. But we put money in the sidewalk to make them pretty, but nobody's in these buildings. You know, and it takes people coming together in order to work, to make things work in downtown. You said it yourself. People just don't want to come together. Mm-hmm. We just finished Black History Month in February. When I was growing up as a kid, on 2nd Street, that was Black Wall Street. Mm. It was booming. Yeah. But now, it's not. I mean, you know, it's different. Downtown looks totally different when I grew up as a child. And also, right there at the Haskell Building, it saddens my heart. When I drive through downtown and I got to see a homeless person with trash all around him sleeping right there, that doesn't look good for our city. Somebody's coming through. That doesn't look good at all. you know. But like I say, you know, it's hard. It's hard. It saddens my heart. Just like when, say for example, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna be quiet. Say example when we have something down at the Muskogee Little Theater. Okay, when it's over, it's nowhere to eat downtown. Just like Councilman Reynolds said. Everybody, you said yourself, at 5 o'clock, I don't care if it's summer, I don't care if it's winter. Most people are going to Tulsa, are going to Broken Arrow and getting out of here. They're not staying downtown because downtown offers nothing right now. We might as well be honest with ourselves. I can't sit up here and lie as a councilman. We have nothing to offer our citizens. You know, these things that we put on bananas and all that, that's every now and then. We need something all the time. Our kids, we don't have anything to offer for our millenniums, for our young kids downtown. Nothing. You know, but I just, you know, I'm going to ask you this. When Mr. Newby was director, what would you say a couple of things were the best things he ever did for downtown?
So, to really put me on the spot here, I had to think about that for a second.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
So, as far as downtown, he brought a lot of good ideas to the table. He really did. There were multiple. He had traction on multiple different programs, on a fundraising, on marketing. At the end of the day, most of all of those ended up being big ideas, and very few of them stuck. As far as we're still using them. One of the things that he did start was the first Saturday gathering. He did start that. I think the problem with him, he had the big ideas, but he lacked the funding that it took to pull them off. And so it ended up being that big ideas turned into nothing a lot of the times. There are multiple areas of, he brought Main Street, I don't know, it was a year and a half ago, we had the Main Street organization, the state Main Street come and do training here. And they were really impressed. And he did that on his own, and he brought a lot of people here to Muskogee for that event, from Main Street and he's been really connected with Buffy Hughes, which is the state director, and just the program itself. He made a lot of connections, but to pinpoint a lot of tangible items, I can't really. The hunt space, that was something. Those designs, that's something that he put together too. But as far as having something sitting there to bring up to you or to respond to you with, I don't have it. Not like that.
My last words to you is all I can say is bring people together and bring people to the table and quit all this, what do you call it? Well, I ain't going to say discriminatory, but people need to be together in order to make Muskogee work. We need to all come together. Every race, creed, and color. We all need to be on one accord. I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
I would like to say I thank everybody that serves on that board, and I thank you for your time tonight. I know I've served there, and it is a tough job, and there's a lot of work that goes into getting everybody active and trying to get Main Street going and get events going in the downtown area. I guess the only word of advice that I could have from my tenure serving there is to evaluate whether it's beneficial to be part of Main Street Oklahoma or USA, because there is a lot of work doing those reports and a lot of defining, and just find out, because really what they bring to the table is resources. They can bring a lot of resources to Muskogee. But are those resources valuable to our community? I think overall what we need is relationships in our community. And that's something that we've struggled with for a long time, relationships between the business owners and relationships with the board. And so much of our time is spent with doing reports for Main Street. And that's a vital part. That's a vital part of it. And I think there's that balance that has to be. Is it worth being a part of that Main Street organization? And so that's the only advice that I'd have, and that was the balance when I was on there. Is it worth it or is it not? But thank you very much to every one of the board members that donate so much of your time and effort of trying to make our community better, because that's what it takes, donations of time, energy, efforts to make our community better. Thank you very much for giving of yourselves to our community. Thank you.
All right. No other questions or discussion? Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Item number 5, please.
Consider authorizing the city manager to assist the Muskogee City County Enhanced 911 Trust Authority in funding a reimbursable grant by advancing the balance of the city's current fiscal year funding to the authority, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, some very good news. Muskogee City County 911 Trust did receive a grant from the state for close to $110,000 to upgrade some of their technology. The grant is reimbursement based, so that means they need to spend the money and then get the money back. They have been awarded the grant, but they probably need some assistance in funding that money up front while they're waiting for the reimbursement. So in discussions with the authority, we decided that it would be possible, with the council's consent, to go ahead and pay the rest of the money that we're going to pay through the fiscal year and let them use that as to pay for the grant. Then they can be reimbursed from the state and cover their operations and cover the grant. So that's the proposal before you, is that we can help them with their cash flow without it costing us any more money. But I didn't want to alter really the agreement that we had in place with them without coming to you for that. Tim Davidson is here. He's the director of the 911 Trust Authority and runs things and makes things run smoothly there in what is obviously a very chaotic environment. He can answer any questions you have, but really the proposal is just to fund the actual funding we have budgeted for the year in a lump sum for the rest of the year to help them with cash flow for this grant. I'll be happy to answer any questions, as will Mr. Davidson, I'm sure.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve this agenda item. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs?
Yes.
Marlon Coleman?
Yes.
Ivory Van?
Yes.
Derek Reed?
Yes.
Alex Reynolds?
Yes.
Jamie Stout?
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston?
Yes.
Item number 5 passes. Item number 6, please.
Thank you all.
Consider approval to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a contract with Dobson Technologies to provide wide area network connectivity to city buildings in an amount not to exceed $66,500, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garber?
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, just to give you a little bit of background, we replaced our wide area network technology back in 2008. We went basically from a radio backhaul system to a mixture of Suddenlink, fiber, and Ethernet modems, which at the time improved our data transport, but there is limitations. So IT department started looking at the possibility of an all-fiber solution, which was not available back in 2008. So they put together a request for proposal, sent it out. They received several proposals. The annual cost of the proposals ranged from $61,920 to $322,560. Construction cost ranged from $0 to $206,000. Had a review committee review the proposals. They are recommending the lowest and best proposer, which was Dobson Technologies. Their proposal is for $61,920 with no construction cost. They are estimating some taxes and fees that could be up to 7% of the annual cost, which would be about another $4,400 annually. The price is locked in for 5 years. Currently, we have budgeted $76,800, so we are under budget. We do have a representative from Dobson Technologies, as well as our IT director present if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'd recommend approval to authorize the manager to negotiate and execute a contract with Dobson Technologies for an amount not to exceed $66,500.
Second. I move for approval.
Second.
Second. I won't second Gary. Gary's going to make the motion.
Have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion or questions? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs?
Yes.
Marlon Coleman?
Yes.
Ivory Van?
Yes.
Derek Reed?
Yes.
Alex Reynolds?
Yes.
Jamie Stout?
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston?
Yes.
Item number 6 passes. Item number 7, please.
Consider approval to make application for the 2020 Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act Peer Support Implementation Project Grant through the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services in the amount of $125,000 or take other necessary action.
Chief Teehee.
Chairman, members of the committee, as you may or may not know, we've got a nationwide epidemic going on, and it's not coronavirus. It deals with law enforcement suicides. Our last suicide in Muskogee Police Department was about 20 years ago. My prayers is that that never happens again. But what this grant does, it gives us the ability. This past year, we used some of our money that we set aside for firearms qualification to do an MOU with Integrity Pathways. What that is an organization that does officer wellness program. They do, all of our officers go in once a year for a checkup. Also have the ability to go in and do follow-up if need be. One of the things that several things that they do, one is annual checkup. They have a family support group that actually is meeting tonight for wives, significant others, spouses, and children. They also do our continuing education, which is state-mandated mental health education. They also do peer support training, so our officers have the ability to do peer support with those officers that need assistance. They also give discounted rates to officers who have issues outside of the work, and they also give us something else that's really important, which is priority scheduling, meaning if we have a problem with one of our officers have an issue, we go straight to the front of the line. What this grant would do is it would take care of all, it's on a 2-year cycle, it would take care of all of those charges, also would give us the ability to have a tracking ability for officers when they go in. It's all done on an anonymous basis unless it reaches a certain criteria where we have to know, obviously, through administration. The other thing that would do is give a paid overseer of that the program. All this is just the approval from the committee and council to apply for the grant. Don't know that we'll get it or not, but we're one of the first in the area that's doing this, and we'd recommend approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this agenda item. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 7 passes, and with that passing, that is our final item for the Finance Committee.
I will now call the Public Works Committee for March the 2nd to order. Item number 1, please.
Consider approval of Public Works Committee minutes of February the 3rd, 2020.
I'm sure everybody's had time to review the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Move the approval. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 1 passes. Item number 2, please.
Receive presentation on Urian Safety Review for 2019 and provide necessary direction to the staff.
Mr. Tucker, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for those of you who don't know, I want to take a minute to introduce our new safety manager, Avery Rigney. Avery joined us in mid-December, and I will tell you has hit the ground running. So we have been very pleased to welcome him to our little family in the City Attorney's Office. As you all know, the Division of Workplace Safety has been assigned to be supervised by my office. So that has been going on about 3 years now. So we were very sad, of course, to lose Dakota Jones, who was our previous safety manager. But with Mr. Rigney here, we think we're in good hands. And so he has put together a report for 2019. So this does cover the previous calendar year. And so with that, I will turn the floor over to Mr. Rigney.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm just going to get right into it. This is our safety recap for 2019. We'll start with a recap of the 2019 objectives. Looks like there was 5 of them. This was gone over around this time last year in the same presentation. One goal that we had was deeper investigation into injuries. The way that we've taken that on, there was changes made to the incident form, the incident investigation form, and that's something we're furthering. We're trying to grow that, add more questions, prompt better answers for our supervisors who aren't necessarily trained in reporting incidents. Last year, they decided they wanted to make a more focused safety training. That's another thing that we're going to continue to run with in 2020, even after seeing advances in 2019. We'll talk about that a little bit later as we get into the safety plan. OMAG online safety training for police and fire, that was completed in 2019. Improved worksite inspections was another goal for 2019. That's something we're continuing to work towards in 2020 with worksite tracking log. We track our investigations and inspections of work sites. That's something we'd like to report out. Once again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the goals for 2020. And developing a safety committee and department communication. So that's one thing that we have succeeded in. That safety committee has met several times since I've been here. Like Roy said, we've hit the ground running with that and seen a lot of traction there. Something we'll look to continue to grow in 2020 as well. So a few definitions that are going to be important for this recap. A recordable incident is going to be any incident resulting in death, days away from work, restricted work or transfer to another job, medical treatment beyond first aid, or loss of consciousness. A recordable injury is just an injury that needs to be reported to OSHA. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was a serious injury. It could just be a doctor's appointment visit that resulted in anything beyond over-the-counter medication. So just extra strength ibuprofen could result in a recordable. So one thing to remember is that does not necessarily indicate its severity. It just indicates its status of reporting. A lost time injury is an injury that results in time off work as prescribed by a doctor. Restrictions in light duty are not lost times, but they are still going to be a recordable. A hazard is a dangerous or potentially dangerous situation, act, or environment, and risk is probability times severity. So right here, you'll see our injury data for the past 4 years. Unfortunately, our total workers' comp cases have been trending in the wrong direction. We've gone up each year. If you look at the recordable incidents row, you'll see two numbers that are in parentheses. Those numbers are ones that I went back and I audited the last safety manager's results from his calculations, and I came up with a little bit different numbers. My numbers were higher, so that's unfortunate, but that's how I saw it and felt it was noteworthy of reporting. And also you'll see that that is gone up recently in 2019. And our lost time incidents followed that same trend. They went up in 2019. We'll talk a little bit about the reasons for those trends later on, but it's you can see a nice visual in that bar graph on the right. 2019 was more total workers' comp cases, more recordable injuries, and more lost times in the past 3 years. Right here, you can take a look at our recordable incidents by department. On the left, you'll see a list that didn't make the graph. That is because those departments had 0 recordable injuries. I'd like to point out that the city attorney's office was on that list. But reason that might look like that is those departments might be set up a little bit better for success based off what they do on a daily basis. If you look at the graph, you'll see 4 that stand out to you probably. They're in double digits. You have the fire department, Parks and Recreation, the police department, and sanitation. Those are like that because of the nature of their work. Firefighters, police department, there's a lot of variety in what they do every day. And their safety is not always necessarily reliant on the way that they do their job. A lot of it is reliant on the situations that they're put in. Parks and Recreation, they work outside. They have a lot of employees. That's another thing in common with these 4 departments is they have the most employees in the city. So part of that is just by probability that you have that many people, there's going to be more injuries. And sanitation has injuries. They're mostly ergonomic injuries. It's a lot of work for them. They get on and off that truck every day. They're moving heavy trash cans. Sometimes people pack those trash cans full of dirt, and they weigh several hundred pounds. That's just part of the thing. But we're looking at getting those one-armed trucks that is really going to drop that number by a lot, we hope. So that's how we're working to combat that. So we'll move on to workers' comp, and here's a few concepts that might be important. Workers' compensation is a system of insurance that reimburses an employee for the damages that must be paid to an employee for an injury occurring in the course of employment. We'll talk about payments made per year versus incurred cost. Payments made in a year may date back to the previous year's workers' comp claims, and incurred cost is the amount of costs worth of injuries in that year. So here's a visual for that. You'll see in 2019, it matches our recordable injury data. All of it is significantly higher. Some of that is because costs transfer over, and it just ends up that way based on the schedule of payments. And also, it's noteworthy in 2019, we incurred one injury for over $90,000 and another injury for over $100,000. That accounts for 28% of the incurred costs on only 3% of the claims. So you take those two claims out, those numbers are not skewed near as far. So we'll talk about some trends, why our workers' compensation may be rising and our recordable injuries may be rising. We've had roughly the same number of workers' compensation claims each year, meaning we have about the same number of people claiming that they were injured a year. There's been a notable increase in the recordable injuries and the lost time injuries and the workers' compensation costs in 2019. There's some potential reasons for that increase. You have better reporting and better recording of injuries. That would be a positive thing. We're getting more employees stepping up saying we're getting injured, this is not a safe environment. It's good to know that. We have to know that to make improvements. Another reason, the Georgia Pacific fire. Everyone remembers that. That caused a 20% increase in our firefighter injuries this year over last year. Doctors' care. The reason that the recordable and lost time incidents could have gone up, doctors are being a little bit more cautious on sending our employees back to work, and they're treating a little bit more aggressively as far as prescribing medicines. For poison ivy cases, they may be giving injections for, to help the poison ivy clear up a little bit sooner. And it could just be increased severity. The incidents may be a little bit more severe, causing more time off work. We'll continue trends here. In 2019, we saw the lowest amount of non-recordable workers' comp cases, meaning most of our doctors' visits this year resulted in a recordable. So that kind of relates back to doctors treating a little bit more aggressively or more cautiously. That could relate back to them. In 2019, only 10% of our cases that went to a doctor came back without a recordable case, as opposed to in 2017, we had almost 3 times that at 28%. Why is that? More aggressive treatment, more severe injuries, a combination of the two. So some of the objectives that we'll have for 2020, moving on to this goals portion. Employee training, we really want to work on improving that, and we want to change over from just reading the policies in a big group of people to breaking that down into more of a one-page SOP-style training that's done by the frontline supervisors. If you look there, you can see a lot of the OSHA and PIOSH related topics that we're going to go over. Reasons for this change in the training format. It's going to increase accountability by letting the frontline supervisors train their employees in safety. They know a little bit better about what's going on than someone that we're going to bring in from ICTC and talk at them. So we want to make sure that somebody related to the field is getting that message across. It's going to be more efficient. We won't waste time having that long 2-hour meeting where all the employees like to, take a little nap, turn the lights off, and watch that video from before I was born. It's easier to learn in a one-page format than trying to read policy speech. That's just for the common person. It's hard, it's a tongue twister to get up there and read all the policies whenever you could break it down into something simple. It's more job specific. That goes back a little bit to that accountability. We want our sanitation supervisors training our sanitation employees. And there's more room to improve this process. That goes along with the job specific. We won't have the same trainings for water treatment that we might have for sanitation or that we might have for fire or that we might have for police. It'll start out the same, but as we grow in this system, those trainings will get more immersive and we will continue to develop, get a little bit more job specific as time goes on. Leaves us a lot of room to improve. So we have a safety plan. It was new last year, I believe. And we are going to take it back to the drawing board. There's a lot of good things in that safety plan, but there's things that we can work on. So what needs to change about that? There's a lot of goals in the current safety plan that would suggest improvement, but they're not trackable. So we want to make them SMART goals. I don't know if you're familiar with this acronym, but SMART goals would be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time sensitive. We want to add to this safety plan goals that we can actually track so we can measure our improvement year after year. The safety plan also addresses building a positive safety culture. How will we do that? First, we need to realize that the city of Muskogee is a large entity that has several fields of labor, some more hazardous than others. And also, accidents are going to be part of everyday life, and they're going to be part of the workplace. Our duty is to make sure that the workplace is as safe as possible and attempt to mitigate these hazards and these accidents. So when making decisions in the field of safety, it's important that we make data-driven decisions. We need to see where the injuries are happening. We need to attack there first. Make sure we take care of what the data is showing us. The way we can do that is by being proactive and gathering proactive data. So proactive data would be things along the lines of hazard submission forms, audits, those worksite inspections, letting employees do their own auditing of their work sites because they know what's best. They work there every day. They know what's going to cause them hazards. They know what to look for better than the untrained eye. We want them reporting their near misses. A near miss is simply something that could have been an accident, but by luck or by a small scenario, they did not get injured. But we need to know about that so we can take care of it and keep it from happening again, because the next time it could be resulting in an incident. And we also want employee feedback. We need to hear from the employees what they feel is dangerous, what they feel is hazardous. They're out there every day. They're closest to the situation. That's where our best information is going to come from. Some more objectives for 2020. We want to lower the workers' compensation costs, and by that I mean the incurred cost by 7.5%. That would be reducing our average claim by $570. We feel that's very reasonable as opposed to the last safety plan's goal of 20%. We also want to lower the recordable incident rate by 5%. This would mean reducing the number of recordable injuries by 4%. That may not sound like a lot, and it's not going to knock too much off of that 88, but you make that improvement year after year, we're eventually down to a really, really good incident rate. And we want to record at least 100 site inspections in the calendar year. That may not seem like a lot also, but we want to set a goal that we can accomplish and build on. We have a 75% pass rate for that goal. And once again, we want to set something that we can accomplish that's attainable, something we can track, something we can improve on later. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Standing report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Avery, for all you do.
All right. Thank you, guys.
And then you will see us back here again with the 2020 safety plan we'll ask you all to approve that as well. I think we're going to have that on Monday. Is that
Yes,
that
1
correct?
week from today.
Okay. So
Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Thank you, Mr. Tucker.
absolutely.
We don't need any action on this, correct?
That's correct.
Just receiving a report. Item number 3, please.
Consider approval to allow the commemorative Air Force Air-Powered Tour and the Military and Indian Aviation Heritage Foundation permission to host and operate a public aviation event titled Bombers, Blues, and Barbecue on October 16, 17, and 18, 2020 at Muskogee Davis Regional Airport, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garvin?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the airport has hosted several events over the past 5 years for the commemorative Air Force. This year, they want to partner with the Military Indian Aviation Heritage Foundation, the MIA Foundation. The event, Bombers, Blues, and Barbecue, will be held at the airport on October 17th, 18th, and 19th. Their plans are to bring several aircrafts, possibly including the B-29, B-24, and aircrafts from the Flight Museum. They will also have live music, speakers, food, and fireworks. The money raised from this event will go back to the airport to help the restoration of the Muskogee World War II hangar at our airport. The airport board did meet at their last meeting. They did recommend approval. Our airport manager is present if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'd recommend approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments from committee? Sounds like an outstanding event. Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 3 passes. Item number 4, please.
Receive presentation from Patient Choice Coalition of Oklahoma on upcoming legislation relating to short-term emergency and non-emergency hybrid medical facilities and take other necessary action.
Counselor Coleman.
I've had the opportunity over the last several weeks to visit with the Patient Choice Coalition of Oklahoma concerning their plans to support the short-term emergency and non-emergency hybrid medical facilities and how those facilities will help small cities and rural areas such as Muskogee. And I've invited Mr. Daniel Chepakakis to come and make a brief presentation to us on what that means for Muskogee and how it will be a benefit to us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to come here. As Councilman Coleman said, I'm Daniel Chipkoskis with the Patient Choice Coalition. I represent over 2,000 healthcare providers in the state of Oklahoma and roughly 4,000 to 5,000 in the state of Texas. What we see happening across the state of Oklahoma, and then more specifically here in Muskogee, is rural healthcare is suffering as far as access and employment opportunities for healthcare providers to practice. And this is very near and dear to my heart, specifically here in Muskogee, is the issue with St. Francis. And that is not just a problem here in Muskogee, but that's a problem across the state and across the country, to where these not-for-profit hospitals, they're not contributing like many other healthcare providers are. And what they also do is they become satellite campuses, and they're just shipping patients to larger metropolitan areas. So what you have before you is what I call a short-term emergency and non-emergency hybrid medical facility. And what it does is it provides an opportunity for smaller cities, rural communities, to where they can attract healthcare providers to open their own facilities. So rather than depending upon the large not-for-profit health systems to provide care in communities, we can have our own healthcare providers that live and practice in our communities. So the issue with St. Francis not paying its in-kind contributions, these type of facilities, they could be owned by providers that live here, but they would also be paying property taxes and contributing into our communities. So these facilities are a little bit different than a typical hospital. What they would look like is a much smaller, scaled-down version, to where they can be on the outskirts of cities or in rural areas such as Shakota, Shodo, places like that. And what they would do is they would provide emergency and non-emergency care 24/7, 365. But what's different between it and a hospital is that they can only keep patients up to 24 hours. So basically what it does is it makes the model much more efficient. The overhead costs are drastically less than a hospital. So what they do is they triage patients. They see them according to the acuity level, meaning if it's not truly an emergency, they can treat them as a non-emergent patient, which drastically reduces costs. And once they have triaged those patients, they can then ship them to facilities such we have here in Muskogee. So it doesn't hinder the hospitals that we already have, but what it does do is it further employs more healthcare providers, more tax money to the community, but it provides a place of triage to then ship to a local hospital, a larger facility in a metropolitan area. So these types of facilities are not meant to hurt community hospitals, but what it is to do is to help support communities that they don't want their patients or the constituents or the people of those communities having to drive 10, 15, 20 miles to a hospital, but to have on-site triage, and then they can be actually transferred or transported to a larger hospital. So this legislation is supported by Senator Pemberton, Representative Fricks, and Representative Sneed. It's actually authored by Representative Olson. He's actually taken language from Representative Sneed and is running that for him. But I bring that before you because I think it's near and dear to everyone here in this room that there needs to be adequate access to health care. And what we're seeing with St. Francis and these other not-for-profit facilities is they hijack our health care. And give you a particular example, the independent physicians facility on North Main Street, the issue that happened there was not primarily due to not running it efficiently, but it was because they couldn't get paid. So these big health systems come in and they actually they stifle these facilities from being profitable. They buy them up. Then there's no longer that tax money coming into the communities, and then they're steering patients out of our community to Tulsa and Oklahoma City. So these types of facilities is a way of dealing with situations like we have now, so that we can provide greater employment, more tax money to our community, and increase access to health care. So if I would like the council to consider a resolution to support this. This has been a work in process for many years. I'm advocating for it. Obviously, you can't guarantee that legislation is passed in one session, but to have communities like Muskogee and others around the state step up and say, we need solutions to health care, other avenues, so that we don't encounter issues like we're encountering here, it would go a long way in seeing legislation like this go across the finish line. I'll answer any questions if anyone has any.
Daniel, how close are we to having the legislation package so that it can be prepared for the governor's signature?
Okay, so this bill has already passed out of House Insurance Committee. It is eligible for a House floor vote that will take place either this week or next week. There's only 2 weeks left for these bills to be heard and then move over to the other chamber, to the Senate. So theoretically, I mean, next 4 or 5 weeks, it could make it to the governor's desk. So obviously, I'm working on a day-to-day basis, ensuring that legislators are educated on these type of facilities. It's there's lots of pushback from the big hospitals, big health systems. They don't like these type of facilities because it's competition to them, and they see it as basically a turf battle. So I think we need to start thinking more proactive in our health care and opportunities that can stifle, or not stifle, but encourage growth in our small communities, but also provide the access that we need.
Will you guys be using existing facilities, or will you be building new facilities?
That's a great question. So this facility, basically, it's a new licensure type. So let's just say that our community hospital was suffering. It could actually restructure into one of these. We could have healthcare providers that own and operate these. Or you could build new facilities. So as your handout says, these cost between $5 to $10 million to open these facilities, which is substantially less in comparison to micro hospital between 15 to 25 million, and then a full-blown hospital could be 50, 100, 200 million dollars, just depending on how many beds. So it's a better mousetrap. It's a better way of providing health care, much cheaper costs, and then also providing incentives to the local communities through tax dollars.
Is there a provision in there that will make sure that it stays a private facility of its own and it won't turn around and be sold to St. Francis like Main Street?
Well, that could be added. It's left open to where these facilities can only be in a particular population, so we're gearing them more towards the rural areas. So, I mean, technically, St. Francis could open these facilities, but they're more designed so that ER docs, healthcare providers, they come together and say, hey, we want to open up this facility for our community, and that's typically what we see in other states that have facilities that are similar to this. So, I mean, to answer your question, obviously, the big health systems could open these, but it's more designed for providers to band together to open these in their communities.
Daniel, the reason I asked about the timeline is because I want to give our colleagues on the council opportunity to digest this before we actually put the resolution forward. So I think that'll a week or two give us enough time to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
And then be able to be certain we can garner enough support to formulate a resolution. But I definitely wanted them to hear the presentation and have the information so that when we move forward or try to move forward with the resolution, they can make an informed decision.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. And just to offer up the expertise that I have, I work in healthcare every single day, so I really understand the dynamics associated with insurance companies, with how these big health systems operate and what they do to communities. So if there ever is any questions you have about situations you're dealing with in regard to healthcare, I'd love to be able to answer any of your questions or provide input on that. So.
Daniel, I really appreciate your presentation tonight and the information packet that you provided. If we could, Councilor Coleman, also, I appreciate you bringing the information to us tonight. If we could get a good copy of House Bill 2782, because I would definitely need some time to review it.
That's fine.
They're not easy. One, these bullet points are really good and good information, easy to digest. But sometimes those House bills for me are just not that easy to digest, and I appreciate you having given us time to.
I'll leave a copy of the bill. You'll have to make copies for everyone else.
I appreciate
but
that.
I do have a copy of the entire bill.
Thank you
so.
very much. If we could scan that and make it available in our Dropbox.
Sure.
Because it would take me some time to digest those House bills.
You guys have.
So Councilor Coleman, we would need no action on that? Just for information purposes? Any other comments from council?
I was just going to say, thanks, Daniel, for all your work and stuff that you do on the healthcare. I know that y'all work hard day in and day out taking care of us.
Since there's nothing else on item number 4, we will move to item number 5.
Consider the appointment of Kimberly Hackaz to serve on the Parks and Recreation Board, filling the unexpired term of Melissa Hill, beginning March 1, 2020, and ending February 28, 2021, or take other necessary action.
Councilor Coleman again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kim has been very active in our community, working in different capacities, particularly in economic development with our Port Authority, and she's interested in serving in other capacities, and she's very interested in being on the Parks and Recreation Board. And having reviewed her application, I'd like to recommend approval.
Move second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other comments from the committee? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed. Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 5 passes. That will conclude our normal Public Works Committee. And now we will move to the section where we're recognizing citizens wishing to speak to the committee. I have received 3 this evening. All 3 of these are non-agenda items, so they will have 3 minutes to address the committee. If you would, come to the podium when I call your name and give us your name and address. Unfortunately, since it's a non-agenda item, we'll be able to hear you, but none of the committee will be able to address the item. I know there's 2 of you that have signed up to speak, and you've asked to speak to council members after the meeting, Derek Reed and Ivory Van after the meeting. But I always want to let you know that we can't speak back to you, but we want to hear what you have to say to us tonight. First one would be Leon Mulligan.
I'm not a speaker, so y'all hang on. I've worked for ODOT for 34
Excuse me, if
years.
you could give us your name and address first.
Leon Mulligan.
Thank you.
1911 South 24th and 1921 South 24th. Houses right next to each other. Dad bought Tobes Courts in 1950, so we've lived there ever since. But anyway, my job for ODOT was state inspector, bridges and highways. And as you all know, roads are just as good as their subbase. So if the ditches aren't clean, water's going to soak in under the road and it's going to ruin it. And you all know every time Highway 69 floods, they're put over there on 24th Street around Estelle or whatever to come all the way up to Old Jenny or all the way to Peak Boulevard because they can't get under the bridge there that floods. I mentioned it to Darren Saliba whenever he was here and went out there by Cootie Creek where all the water exits out and there's a lot of trees and everything, debris out there in Cootie Creek. But the main thing I'm here for today is the drainage on 24th Street from Old Jenny down to where it starts to drop off into Cootie Creek where Billy lives. The tin horn there is the water hadn't got across 24th Street. You put reinforced concrete pipe across any state highway. Any residential area, it can have CGSP, which is corrugated pipe under it. All right, the drain has not been cleaned out across 24th Street, which slows everything down from up at Old Jenny because everything's headed south or north. And then it stops, slows it down. And then when it slows it down, sediment and everything gets inside the pipe and won't let it drain. And then by it sitting there, not flushing itself out, it rots real quick and everything. But anyway, I would like to see that. The ditches cleaned out and also the road's shoulders clipped. That means motor grader going down through there, and I've seen where they've clipped about this far, but when it rains, you still have 3 inches of water on the road because it can't get all the way over there to the ditch to get on out of there. They need to be clean, clipped all the way out to where the the ditch is to where they can get the water on out there. The ditches need to be cleaned. They was 3 foot deep whenever we was kids riding their bicycles and jumping over them. Now they're not hardly deep at all. One more thing, there was a tin horn going across Hancock Street south at OG&E. It's been plugged up for about 30 years. And all the water for about the first 3-4 houses up there, the water's just leaching out of the dirt, going across the road, and during the winter it's just solid sheet of ice. It's a wonder somebody hadn't got killed or anything. And that's another thing down there by Billy's. If that isn't cleaned out, somebody's going to hydroplane because there's 3 or 4 inches going across 24th because it can't go under. And if they do, they're going to go in a deep ditch and it could kill somebody, and then there'd be a lawsuit. I just thought I'd mention it. One more thing, street lights. I know y'all ain't got the money for it and everything. I'm paying for my street light out there, and there's 2 or 3 of McElroy's paying for a street light out there. But anything y'all could do, like you don't have to set poles up. I mean, mine's hanging on the OG&E power pole, but you're paying $5 a month to have it done. And
I'm
really
sorry your time's expired.
Okay, that's good.
But
Thank you very much.
We can extend your time if you need some more time.
I would like to thank you for one thing, if I could. Do I have another 30
Motion to grant
seconds or so?
2-minute extension.
Okay, I got a motion for a
Second.
2-minute extension.
Okay.
Got a second? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed. Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
We've added 2 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. In the 1940s, Joe Lux, I don't know if y'all remember him or not, Lee Jacks Electric used to be a slaughterhouse right there. Okay. He put in a water line from Border all the way up to his house, which is up there by Southgate, that big brick 2-story up there, and everybody was on that water line. Well, about, I'd say 6 years ago, y'all put in a new water line down to almost all the way. But 3 years ago, you finished it and brought it from Border up to past my house, and I just really appreciate doing that because when Mac Oil started filling their acid tanks with water and my wife was in the shower, you lose all water pressure. It's a 2-inch line all the way up through there. But I just want to thank you for putting in the water line.
Thank you very much for your comments this evening. And he had asked to meet with Derek Reed and Mr. Van, Councilor Van, after the meeting. Our next wishing to speak is Billy Hurd. If you would give us your name and address.
Yes. Thank y'all. I think y'all do a good job. Billy Reard at 1507 South 24th Street. Lifelong resident, still living where I was born. So I turned 69 2 days ago. So the water problem, like Leon just explained, everything from OG&E comes north to my driveway, and at my driveway on the north edge is a culvert that goes under 24th Street. Well, that culvert is plumb stopped up. Water cannot go through it. So the water just builds from my driveway all the way back to OG&E. Everybody's ditches are full of water. I've got a lake in mine. My gas meter's usually underwater. It's that bad. And like it's going to cause some accidents, people running through the water when it's raining. And of course, it makes it hard for me to take care of my yard. It's been doing it so long that it's rotted out my tin horn. My tin horn caved in. So the water couldn't get through anyway, but it still runs over because it can't get out on the other side. And then it just runs across 24th to where it has to go. So we'd like to get that addressed and maybe fixed before something bad happens. I don't see anybody hurt out there. It could happen. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments tonight.
Could I ask these 2 gentlemen a question?
No,
Mayor, we can't.
We can't during this time period.
Can't have any discussion.
I wasn't going to discuss anything. I was just going to ask them a question.
We can't during this time. After the meeting, we can.
Okay.
Our next wishing to address the if you gentlemen could hang around, our mayor would like to ask you a question. Because I don't like to do that to our mayor. Our next wishing to address the committee this evening is Stan Anthus. If you would give us your name and address.
Stan Anthus from 3002 Shelby Circle. and I've got some outlines I'd like to pass around to y'all, and one
yes,
set of
sir.
pictures.
If we would not start the clock until the handouts, thank you very much, City Clerk. Okay, Mr. Anthus, if you would give us your name and address.
Okay, 3000. I'm Stan Anthus, 3002 Shelby Circle. I've been a member of the fitness center since it started at the location on 6th Street, I guess, the old Red Cross Center. I'm just a lap swimmer there, and I defer any specific recommendations to the Parks and Rec or to the manager of the fitness center. But as a member there, since the beginning, how many of y'all have been to the fitness center in the wintertime? Anybody? Okay, a couple of you guys. If you've been in the locker rooms, the pool area, you realize there's a whole lot of water coming down those walls. And one of the pictures in there shows the men's locker room. There's probably a half to 2/3 of the lockers in there unusable in the winter because of all the water coming down. Since the beginning, about a month ago, I was just stricken by how much water was coming down in difficult places. And I took slides, 24 of them. In the interest of time, I've got color pictures going around tonight. Well, last Friday, I was trying, how many of y'all changed clothes on a wet floor? It's not easy to do. So I stood on my tennis shoes last Friday night, put my dry clothes on, and I said, this is the time I need to talk to you guys about it, somebody. And I visited with some other folks, and of course my son's a manager there, and I don't want to reflect poorly on him, but the fitness center is a multi-million-dollar facility. It was given by the Red Cross. Improvements to the original facility, like tile flooring, roof repair, epoxy paint in the pool area and a lot of other places, have been great. It really dresses it up. The staff, generally, pretty user-friendly, and they help fix problems. The fitness center pool provides aerobic exercise, lap swimming, pool parties, recreational swimming. The fitness center pool also supports the water park as far as training kids how to swim, training lifeguards that work out there. By the way, I've got 4 kids, and all 4 of them have been lifeguards out there. So, and that's not necessarily credentials here, but I am a member. Let's see. Other thing they do, they provide swim lessons for young kids. The best thing to prevent your kids from drowning is swim lessons. I had a friend I worked with, and he lost a child to drowning, and he lost his marriage shortly after that. So swimming is important. The fitness center has cool weather. I said it's had cool weather heating issues since the beginning. Now, one simple solution to the issue is if you heat the air above the pool, you cut the evaporation down quite a bit, and that's the primary goal on HVAC. Estimates of repair I've heard of have been maybe $300,000 to fix it, which is a lot. But I think I've heard Jenny Cagle talk about spending $2 or $3 million to fix the hatbox hanger, which is a good cause. But before we add on something new there, I think we should really take care of what we've got. So please fix our pool problem. I appreciate the time and all the time taking to listen here. And I advise you, please take time for your health today so you have health for your time tomorrow. And fixing the pool center, I think, is a big part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anthus. That will conclude our meeting this evening. Thank you very much.
Alex, he's already run.